Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan, and today we have a very special guest with just me. Hunter's not here today. We have DAI Shugars. How you doing today, DAI?
Hey, how's it going?
So for those who might not know or who don't listen to the show, since you've come up many times on the show, who might not know who you are, who the heck are you?
Oh, well, the way I always describe myself is, hi, I'm DAI. I make books. In particular, I make a lot of tabletop RPGs. I'm a fairly prolific worker in the indie scene, if I can be so proud. Yeah, that's really it. I make games.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't remember. Maybe it was. I know we were talking before stream happened, where I was like, who the heck did this layout? I need to remember this name. Like, I need to go look at who it was or whatever. It might have been when we did Squishy, and then I would just notice your name like more and more and more and more. By the time I got to Gangs of Titan City, I was like, man, this is a good game. It looks good. It feels good. And, and then, obviously we work with, we are close friends with Jert at this point, and you are you are part of Space Penguin, which we'll get to eventually. We have a list of things to talk about, especially on your website, which for those watching is in the opposite corner that I just pointed to. But I guess the beginning is probably a good place to start. So what was GMDK? Let's start there.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, GMDK is not actually the start. The start was me working with Skirples back in 2017, back when I was like completely a nobody. Taught myself like how to use. I was using LaTeX at the time, which is like a markdown program to do designs. But and I did that for like the first 3 or 4 books. But GMDK was a publishing company. I did. Me and a few friends decided like, well, we wanted to get our books out there, and we were having a hard time finding other publishers for it. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? I got a pretty reasonably secure day job. I can take some financial risks, so I'll be the one to head this. We released 3 books. The Demon Collective Volume 1, which was pretty much like, I would say like the mission statement. It was an anthology of horror adventures designed, written, illustrated, edited by an entirely trans cast of creators. And then that was reasonably successful. We made like 7,000 out of a 1,000 budget, which was phenomenal for us at the time. And then for the next book, we decided to publish an English translation of the French game Liberté by Vivi Fay, which is to this day one of my favorite games ever made. Like, I truly believe that just one of the most beautiful works of art in the RPG space. That's the one.
Yeah. So I definitely had this book long before I knew, like, was aware of like who you are, or like even now like what GMDK was and stuff like that. This is a book that I've maybe seen like one other person talk about, and it's insane. Like, it's insane. Like, it's incredible. There's a whole like segment of the TTRPG niche that I can't believe that they don't ever shut the fuck up about this, but like I never hear them talk about it, because this is a very like story forward, dark as hell, just incredible game.
I actually just wrote, sorry, continue.
No, go for it, please. Yeah, no.
So Liberté is the basis, like the mechanical basis for a game I'm designing right now called Half-Light. And I just spent today writing a like 1,700 word blog post about why I think Liberté has the single most sublimely beautiful mechanics of any game whatsoever. Like, the sort of powered by the apocalypse system, but you invest points, and you're trying not to get like the highest number, but the 8 to a 10 as opposed to like a 12 plus. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I very much like the PBTA adjacent. 2d6 mixed success is my favorite, but moves make me want to rip my eyes out. So anything that,
Yeah.
leans into those kind of um, nothing never happens mechanics, like one of the worst things that you can do in a game like 5e is miss, because then it's just like, okay, well, you
Yeah.
missed. That sucks. Like, that's the end. I
Try
guess
again
someone else
next
gets to
time.
go. Yeah. But
It'll be your turn
when
again in
you
15 minutes.
right, like, please don't play on your phone. Invest in the game. Whatever. But yeah, it's a beautiful game. The mechanics are fantastic, but the setting itself and everything that you do with like the little kids and the bullies and the little one and everything, it's just
Yeah.
it's so good. It's very interesting. So why like what and even how, like, with GMDK and putting this out as one of the 3 books that y'all put out,
Mm.
why this one, and how did you even get, like, reach out to the French creator to make an English translation of this?
Well, we were actually friends beforehand. So GMDK grew out of a Discord server called the Demon Collective. That was me and a bunch of friends. And in fact, GMDK stood for Good Morning Demonkind, which was our customary greeting every time we would wake up. And we just, yeah, the first, the Demon Collective in particular was based off of like all the members of that server coming together and being like, oh, I'll write this, I'll write that. And then Vivi came in later. And yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like they had a game that was very successful in France, successful in insofar as indie RPGs are. And yeah, she was looking for a translator to try to get an English version out. I'm like, oh yeah, totally, I can try. We'll see what we can do. I had never done a translation before. We had the same team working on it, the same editing team, what would eventually become the Moonrat Conspiracy. And Vivi herself did the translation from French to English. And yeah, so that's how we ended up doing that.
Nice. I mean, of all of to only do 3 books in GMDK, and one of them gets to be this one, is an incredible success for a publisher, I think. And then
I
there
would have
was
wanted to do more.
I mean, hey, listen, the future is bright. It exists for all of us. GMDK 2 on the horizon.
I really would have wanted to do more. I just, at the time, I was like, I feel like as a publisher, I'm not doing as much designing of books and I'm doing a whole lot of other stuff. And I felt like I absolutely just had to focus on my design chops and develop my skills in that regard and stop doing so much talking to distributors and making spreadsheets.
Again, the future is bright. So 3 books you put out: Demon Collective Volume 1, Liberté, and third one is
Fleur de Mal, the Liberté supplement.
the supplement.
Yeah, perhaps cheating considering it was part of the same Kickstarter, but I consider it 3 books.
Hey, listen,
It's
a
got
book
its
is a
own
book.
ISBN. Yeah.
It's 2 separate pieces here. So I will completely agree with you. And it's beautiful. I mean, even just, honestly, even just the cover, when you're flipping through things and you see this, and especially I love the back. I love when it like is completely full like this. And when you read, like, in the throes of war, only 3 children survived: the belligerent, the beauty, and the beast. I mean, I don't know how anyone passed that up. Again, I'm shocked that this game is not talked about more, but I feel like we're gonna say that once or twice more throughout the rest of this interview.
Hey, I'm a creator of sleeper hits.
There you go. I couldn't possibly agree more. And again, I need to make a little note for myself to remember to bring that up again later. But after GMDK, because this came out according to the front of the book in 2020. Interesting year, quite the time for us. What happened after GMDK, and kind of like, how did GMDK, like, I don't want to say end, go on an extended hiatus, to move away from that, since you only put out the 3 books?
So Liberté had a bit of a troubled lifespan due to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the time, I was working in a major hospital in Florida, or the at the time I was working in the emergency room, but not as a nurse or a doctor. I was sort of working in the pharmacy adjacent to the emergency room pharmacist, and I was working so much. Florida handled the pandemic particularly badly, thanks to our governor, and I was just getting so burnt out. I was working 12, 16-hour days and then coming back and trying to fulfill a Kickstarter. And I think that it didn't really remove my love for the project or my love for the work, but it did make me think, okay, I have to choose one or the other. Publishing was not the financial windfall that I was perhaps hoping for. They say that if you want to make a big fortune or you want to make a small fortune in publishing, you got to start with a big one. But I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this in a way that's sustainable. And for me, that was design. I decided to focus on being a graphic designer, and I took every chance I could get to just try to do as many books as possible.
And that leads us to, for those watching in podcast land, you should check out DAISHUGARS.com so you can see this beautiful page, very informative. This huge list of covers that I'm scrolling through right now that has hits we've talked about on the show and or will be talking about, especially when we look at things like Inevitable and Moonlight at Roseville Beach.
I'm surprised you haven't done Roseville yet. Roseville's awesome.
Listen, I had to wait for the hardcover to come in. It came in. I got my T-shirt. I got all the zines, and it's on our list. Trust me.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, so that's the problem with some of the projects that we want to do is I'll be like, hey, we should do this one, and then they just announce a Kickstarter for like a new version. I'm like, well, we got to wait a year now. It's one of the reasons we haven't done Cairn either. Is we knew 2E was creeping up, so
it's coming.
Wanted to. Yeah, well, I mean, I keep getting I got an email today from a mutual friend, so we'll see you there. So you kicked over from GMDK into focusing on graphic design and layout and stuff like that, which is primarily what you do now. Post, well, the pandemic's still going on, but after GMDK and when you decided to move into that, like what were the next steps that along the path?
Well, so we'll say late 2021, early 2022 is when I decided I shuttered GMDK and I decided to devote myself fully to design. The big one around that time, oh gracious, I'm trying to remember even what I was doing, like, because I did Magical Industrial Revolution was actually before Liberté. That was late 2020. 2021, 2022, 2020. Well, okay, let's just skip a year, because even I don't remember what I was doing at the time. 2022 was really when I hit my stride, I think, That's when I did Gangs of Titan City. I did the Monster Overhaul. I started branching into PDF remediation for other people. I did the Avatar RPG for Magpie. I did the Alien RPG for Free League. And I think even later that year, maybe early 2023, I did Morkborg's core book.
What? So what? I was going to ask before the show, and I made myself not ask this. What is PDF remediation?
Okay, so this is actually something that I it's a bit of a passion project for me. So PDF remediation is the method by which you take a PDF and you make it accessible for screen readers or other assistive software. So like if you, and this is something I did for all the GMDK books as well, like if you take a regular PDF and you try to run it through a screen reader, particularly something that has a lot of graphic design elements, 2-column layout, big interplay between text and art, it's going to come out really garbled. The screen reader is going to attempt to read left to right, top to bottom, and sometimes that's just not the way the information is supposed to be presented. So PDF remediation is taking an existing PDF, or now I work from layout files, and going through and setting all the metadata, saying, oh, this is a header, this is an image, this is a page number, don't read that. This is a map, here's a description of the map, and making it so that, like, even the people who are entirely blind or the heavily visually impaired, they can still read the book in a sense, or have it read to them.
So here on the show, we kind of have an obsession with PDFs and hyperlinking and accessibility and usability of PDFs. And now I'm going to be obsessed with PDF remediation and knowing whether a PDF is, remediated for a screen reader. How would I go about even knowing that besides running it through a screen reader?
So pretty much the best way to do it would be to open it in Acrobat and check the tags pane. Tags are basically the way you tell a screen reader how to read something. Like I was saying, this is a header, this is an image, etc. If a PDF has no tags whatsoever, you're basically flying by whatever the program thinks it's supposed to read. It probably won't have any way to navigate it. So like most screen readers allow you to hit tab to instantly navigate between headers. That's extremely important because otherwise there's almost no way to say, I want to go to page 60. So yeah, if you don't have any tags in a PDF, then it's not remediated. It's not accessible. And I would say that's the easiest way to check.
All right. Well, so I do have Acrobat. So every future review, blame DAI when you get a point off. Usability for not having accessibility to screen readers with your PDFs. You already beat up enough people about their PDFs. Like, how do you not have bookmarks? But now this is
bare minimum.
Right. Come on. If your table of contents isn't hyperlinked, come on. It's 2024.
I wrote this way back, and I think it's probably gone by now, but I wrote an article called Utilize the Medium back in the GMDK days where I was basically like, okay, PDFs they're a unique medium. They have advantages that you can't get in a regular book. And one of them is the ability to instantly go to a particular topic with the click of a button. Another one is layers. Like you can layer a PDF so that the art can be entirely hidden with a single click. That makes it fantastic for printing. And so many people just don't bother with that. And I feel like it's a waste of the thing. They treat PDFs as just digital books, and they are, but they can also be used in different ways.
I could not agree more. I am obsessed with the way that PDFs they function, especially in this space, especially in an indie space where like printing costs money, and some people have great ideas and they don't have money. So access to the digital medium is such a great way to get those ideas out to people. And if you can do it in a way where you can reach more people, which means accessibility, which means being able to give it to people that might be blind or can't see or any other varieties of way you can do that, make it easier to print, you can do anything. There's no reason not to do it, and like this is a personal gripe that no one gives a shit about but me. But there's a difference between the PDF you send to the printer and the PDF you should send to people as the PDF. And like the one thing that I would just beg people to do is I know people send it in spreads and pages a lot of times. Thank you. I appreciate that. But when you send out the pages one, some people will look at pages in a 2-page spread, and if you don't put one extra page in after your cover or title page, your spreads will be split across 2 different windows. So put in one extra page in the beginning in your pages versus your spread so that they can still view it in spreads if they want to. Personal gripe, no one cares.
No. For any designers in our audience, here's a little tip I learned from Jez Gordon. For a PDF, take your back cover and set it as the second page of your document. Completely ignores that issue. You don't have to put any weird blank space. It's a PDF. You don't need the back cover in the back anyways. Throw it up front. More art. And there you go. You've just completely fixed any issues you've had with spreads.
All right. Listen, all the criteria for usability is redone. Sorry, everyone going forward. You're all fucked. I can't wait till we find that one PDF that does all of that, though. And I'll be like,
oh yeah,
you guys get the 10. Yeah. only one book has ever got a 10 in like our usability, like layout design thing. So, maybe we'll get a second one in the future. So, gosh, I look at this list and we didn't even talk on some of these. Like you said, you did the remediation for all of these projects. I can see, again, if you go to DAISHUGARS.com, you can see this huge list. incredible website, by the way. Like, I've never
Oh,
seen
thanks.
as much information about projects. Like, there's more information from you about projects than from the creators of some of the projects that are listed on here. Just by clicking on it, going in, seeing flip throughs of the books, breakdown of the Kickstarter pages. It's incredible. Good. I mean, good job. You know.
Thanks, thanks. Yeah, I did a thing a while back on Twitter where I was like, would you be interested in reading like sort of a like the equivalent of a devlog for games or programs, where it's like I just do a breakdown of what went into my thinking when I was designing something. And I'm like, would you find that useful or cringingly masturbatory? And most people thought it would be useful. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down 1 week. I would go through all of the projects on my website and I will type it up. I will go back into my archive projects list. I will pull up the research I did, all the mood boards I made, and finally get it down. As a public service.
I mean, this is an incredible public service. I wish more people would, again, do all of this stuff. And hey, listen, if anyone out there needs a PDF remediator, I feel like we found the person for you.
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
There you
It
go.
really is something I'm quite passionate about. Like, I mean, this is usually the pitch I use when I cold call publishers about it, but it's like I feel like RPGs are a medium uniquely suited to being played by the blind, as they are mostly like a collaborative storytelling medium. You've got dice that have bumps on them, and you have a PDF that's properly remediated. You can run an entire game without ever needing to look at anything. And with the
Yeah.
advent of virtual tabletops and everything, like it is a lot easier to play with a properly remediated game than to play almost any video game in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a different medium just because you have the freedom to not be constrained by, the game's mechanics and its space and whatnot. So yeah, you have that access to it in another way. So again, if you have one fan for PDF remediation, know that it is me, and I will now rep
Well,
it constantly, so
I got a
that
few
more
fans.
people would do it.
I got a few fans. I'm a mod with the Knights of the Braille Discord, which is a community of blind and visually impaired gamers. And
That's
I get
fantastic.
messages from time to time being like, "Yo, I'm so glad I can read Mothership now." Like I recently did the entire Mothership 1E box set, and that was like Sean's a fantastic dude, and we've been talking about that for years. But I'm really glad that like someone of that high a caliber, like arguably one of the biggest names in indie publishing, is going all in on this sort of thing.
Again, we will be singing it from the rooftop so that maybe we'll bully enough people. I have a list. I do have a list. I did keep a list of all the people that are like, hey, I heard you were reviewing the game, didn't want to get yelled at, so we hyperlinked to the PDF. And I'm like, yes, all right, that is our legacy, is bullying
You're
people into
doing
hyperlinking their PDFs.
you're
PDF
doing the
remediation
Lord's
is
work.
next. There we go. So after that, I mean, we have a timeline on your beautiful website, so might as well go through that. A PDF remediation, we got OSE listed on here. We got Ether Reich listed on here.
Yep.
Moonlight and Roseville Beach, layout and design. We just talked about that a little bit. That's a project that it's on our list, maybe sooner than later. And it originally came out in paperback, recently had a hardback edition come out. Using this as an example, kind of like the way that you get projects, like did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? Like how does one go about being like, hey, I want you to make this great game with me and do all the layout and stuff like that? How does that process go? Because we've talked to editors and stuff before, but not really a layout and like design person to kind of go through their process. So as an example, how does that go?
I'm probably actually like the worst person to talk to about this because I am outside of my website. I am terrible at advertising my work. uh, Most of my projects are pitched to me. I've got like a stable. If you'll notice, if you go through my work, I work for the same people multiple times. I've worked for what is it? R. Rook Publishing, Richard Rain, several times. I've done like 4 books for Soul Muppet. I've worked with Skirples for like the better part of 8 years now. So yeah, it's like, it's not great advice for up and coming designers, but most times when I get a project, it's because I woke up and I checked my inbox and someone's like, hey, I've got a book I want you to do.
I
I'm
mean, but
very, very lucky in that regard.
here's the thing though, is if you do something once, then they want you back. That says something, right?
I like to think so, you know.
Yeah.
Like with Soul Muppet, like I did 4 books in a row, like 4 of their major productions back to back to back to back.
Oh gosh, what all did we got? So we definitely have Gangs of Titan City. We got Throne of Avarice. We got Inevitable. What was the fourth one?
Orbital Blues Afterburn. Just went to the print shop. In fact, I was gonna do Gardens of Yin, but I was too busy with Afterburn.
Very excited. Soul Muppet's doing such great stuff, and again,
really
I would say again we talked about Squishy before, which is a project you did, but I feel like it was Gangs of Titan City, where, and I feel like I said this already on the podcast, and I know I said it before the stream, where I was just like, damn, this game is underrated and it looks fantastic. I need to make sure whoever made this game look like this is a name that we remember. So now then I would just like go to my Dropbox and search DAI SHUGARS, and I was like, oh, this is a long list of games that this person has done. But that might have been the one. So if you want to see a game, first of all, that's fantastic from Soul Muppet, but that just looks great, and in my opinion, really sings for the way that you do layout and stuff like that. Definitely for those listening, check out Gangs of Titan City. And as far as, I mean, we're getting to the point now where we're up to date in 2024. So as far as your layout style and design and everything, did you go to school for layout and graphics, or is this something you learned? I know you said after GMDK you were like, I'm going to focus on layout, and that's what I'm going to do. Like, kind of how did that kind of happen where now that's what you do full time?
I did not go to school. I considered it, you know, I had tried to, but yeah, I don't really have much in the way of a formal education, but yeah, I'm entirely self-taught. The way that I went about like learning design principles, like after I had the basics, you know, which was mostly just me futzing around in a program, I went to the library, and I found every single book on graphic design this high. And I read through every single one of them. I'm somebody who can very easily grasp information if I read it. And like, even to this day, I've got probably 30 or 40 books that I haven't read that I still flip through from time to time, because I'm just like, I'm insatiable for trying to get better at this particular thing. So yeah, it's mostly just drive.
Just self-taught, and you did it, and now you're still doing it. And as far as like your process for actually getting into doing layout and design, first of all, how do you feel about writers writing directly into layout and then calling you? Is that a thing that happens?
Yeah, and I'm actually not as opposed to it as some. You know, I think in fact the most of the opposition comes from writers and editors, because I feel like they think that it constrains them, you know, if you're working within a page. But the Monster Overhaul in particular was written entirely in layout. You know, I had set up the template. It was similar to the one we used for Magical Industrial Revolution, but aside from that, it was the only way we could possibly get that book to fit all the information onto each page, and that was the goal. You know, we have one page is for barbarians, the next page is for minotaurs. We are going to fill the barbarian and minotaur page margin to margin, you know, and that's really only possible if you're working within layout.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, otherwise you're just going to go and go and go and be like, damn, like this stuff's important, but somehow I have to cut all of it, you know?
Absolutely. There's another, there's a writer. Let me find that person. Because I shared this on Twitter. Natsuhiko Kyogoku. He's a mystery writer, a Japanese mystery writer, who also writes. He sets all his own books, and his idea is that like a sentence should never cross over a page break, because he wants his readers to be able to stop reading whenever they want to. Whereas if the sentence goes over a page, people who are weary of reading, they must turn over the page to finish it. Uh, and I'm like, I thought that was always a fascinating idea. How it's like, you don't want to force your reader to go beyond where they want to stop, just out of the sense of like, oh, I have to finish this sentence.
I mean, that's a great thought because that happens all the time. So I read a lot. I read quite a bit. I've been reading a lot of Warhammer lately. And one thing that they do in a lot of their books is um, a lot of perspective changes and stuff. But like in between them, there will be like not the end of a chapter or even like another thing. There'll just be like a couple like blank spaces, and I'm like, thank you. I don't have to read to the end of the chapter. I know I can just read to this little section here, and that's enough. Yeah. So it's nice to kind of have that like never explained, but kind of like innate permission to be like, this is a good spot to pause and you don't need to read like the 30 more pages in the chapter. So that's
it's an intermission.
Yeah. And which is fantastic.
Popcorn, use the bathroom.
Yeah. And that is one thing that's great. I mean, there is no, well, I was going to say there's no wrong way to do TTRPGs. There's no, there are ways that are more right. And I do, it is nice, like you said, with the monster overhaul, like, sometimes it's great, sometimes, you need to do a little different, but to be like, this is a barbarian page and this is the only page I need for barbarians is a really nice way to do that. Or even like constrain it to a spread or something, whenever it's feasible to keep something within like a set thing, so does it feel like you're breaking it apart, or it has a nice in between sections and stuff like that. It's really nice. Like I love when like books are color coded and stuff. We recently went over Heroes of Cerulean, and like all the rules are like red and all the adventures like green and stuff like that. And then it's really nice to have those kind of breaks and those kind of like innate things built into those kind of things. I don't know what I was even talking about before I just started rambling about all of that, but
no, it makes perfect sense, honestly. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the object you're designing needs to be designed for its particular use. I'm reminded of a story by Bruno Manelli, who was a Italian mid-century designer. And he talks about wooden spoons. And he's like, if you look at an old wooden spoon, you'll see that one side is worn down. And that one side is because it's been stirred in the pot, and you've eaten that part of the wooden spoon in 1,000 different soups and stews. But that wooden spoon, that shape, is how it should have been sold. Like the act of using the spoon has shaped it into its intended design. And I've always thought about that. I was like, oh, well, the way that a book is used should influence its design. You should put yourself in the shoes of someone who is using the book and then design around that.
Yeah. I mean, that it's profound in the simplicity, but what you're saying is exactly what it is. Like a thing should be what the thing is for. I've been playing around doing a little bit of layout stuff and some private stuff that probably no one will ever see. But so I've been reading a bunch of things, and then you look at examples and I'm like, man, like newspapers and magazines make fucking sense. When you explain like why they do. And then I'm like, every time I flip to a page where I'm like, this layout would be a great TTRPG layout. Why aren't more TTRPGs designed to evoke things, because newspapers, magazines, especially magazines with spreads and articles and stuff like that, they are literally designed specifically like knowing that like this is how the human eye crosses across a paper. Like these are the colors that work. This is the boxes that really draw. This is how you make sure that the most important information is most important information on the page. And it's like, man, this is like an intro book. Like it's so I could think of like 5 TTRPGs that if they would have just like flipped through these 3 pages, like they would have looked better and been easier to read. So it's, I mean, that's why you have people like you, though. That's why we have layout people and stuff like that. And I think my question a little bit ago, if I remember my tangent before the tangent was, so what's your process like when you get, someone says like, hey, I have this stuff and I would like it to look like a game, and they hand it to you. How does that work for you?
Well, first things first, I read the book cover to cover. I generally refuse to take on projects that are not finished. I mean, if you're still waiting on a piece of art or two and you know the dimensions of it, that's fine. I can work around that. But like there, in my early career, I took a few books where I would have ended up having to redesign the whole thing because entire chapters were added, and it really threw off my spreads. So I don't do that anymore. So yeah, first things first, I'll read the book. You know, if it's an adventure for a system I'm not familiar with, I'll read the system. Going back to the idea of like I have to know how this is supposed to be used. You know, if it's a DCC module, you know, I need to figure out how people play DCC. You know, how people read DCC books. What's the what do official DCC modules look like? What can I take from that? You know, um, once I'm done that, I will usually take the text and I'll go through blocking. You know, which is just throwing the text on the page, setting my margins, my grid, and everything, getting a general idea of where each bit of text is going to go. And then after that, that's around this time, I'll also start making my mood board, figuring out what I want the book to look like. And then finally, I'll put the art, and then I'll go through and design every page and make it all pretty. And then afterwards, I'll do my like finishing touches, manually break lines so they look all pretty, go through and check I've got all the right apostrophes and hyphens or em dashes when they need to be, and so on and so forth.
Love a good M dash.
Yeah, me too.
Love them. So good. It makes me sad. I don't have alt keys on this keyboard, so anytime I need to do that, I gotta just copy paste an M dash and hurts my soul.
There was a I forget who makes it, but there's someone that makes like a single command button. It's like a gigantic, big red emergency eject button that you can program as a hotkey. And I've always wanted to get one and set it as like an M dash.
Just one M dash. That would be awesome. Gosh, I wonder if I can program the. No, I'm not even gonna worry about that right now. But yeah, I mean, and then you have again a vast list of games that you've done. One thing that pops out here though, because a number of these comes up, is this little kitty right here, Space Penguin Inc. For those that watch the show, you know, we talk about Space Penguin a little bit, like in our monthly scheduled conversations with good friend and human being Jarrett Crater, which I know that you had worked with the Moonrat Conspiracy and Jarrett all the way back in MGMK.
Yeah.
But I guess first and foremost, like, how did you meet Jarrett to get into that, and then B, how did working with Space Penguin come about years later?
So, to be entirely honest, I don't really know when I first met Jert. I know I met Jert through Fiona Geist, who longtime friend, founding member of GMDK. And at the time, she was working with Jert as what would become the Moonrat Conspiracy. So that was before Jert worked with Exalted Funeral and way before Space Penguin. But yeah, ever since the very first book we did together, him and I have been friends. And when it finally came time that he was like, okay, I'm doing my own thing, I want to become a publisher. I'm like, hey, that sounds awesome. And we got to talking, and we were just like, he was just like, you know, the one thing I'm a little concerned about is like, I don't know how to do any sort of marketing. You know, I've never really, he doesn't have a personal Twitter. He doesn't really have any social media. He has a Discord that he used to occasionally post in, but like for the most part, he's like, I don't really know how to do any of that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, man, I can help you with that. And so now, for the most part, like I handle all of the aesthetics of the company, you know, the posts on social media, the product photos, well, he takes the photos, but I edit them and everything. I write the press kits. I do all the interfacing with media, journalism, reporters, all this stuff. I make the Kickstarter pages, the backer kit marketing that we did for Karen. I did all those images, and yeah, basically everything that is not, he does all the back end stuff, you know, actually managing the projects and finding distributors and all the other all the stuff I hated when I was a publisher. He's fantastic at. And yeah, I get to continue being an artistic person.
There you go. And then, so I mean, as listed on your website, there's like social media manager or something like that. Is that what it is? Like marketing social media. It's funny you do
Yeah.
marketing, and then you're like, I'm so bad at marketing for myself, but I'll do it for this entire company. Um, but do you also do, you know, because obviously Jert and Space Penguin, they usually have monthly releases for things that are coming out. Do you do any of the work within those as well? Or are you primarily like when it comes up, or are you primarily just with the marketing social media?
It depends on the project. So I was the designer for Resonant, which is a book that Jert published, or Space Penguin published. That was a project between me, Tony Tran, Amanda Lee Frank, and I believe maybe Evie Lockhart was also involved. I can't quite recall. I think she did a proofreading on that.
That cover slaps so hard. I
Oh God,
mean,
Tony's fantastic. Yeah.
never gonna get over that. For those that haven't seen it, I mean, it's up on the screen right now, and definitely go check it out over on the Space Penguin site. But the second I saw that cover, I was like, I don't even care what this is. I'm getting this because it's beautiful.
It is
But
wild.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I occasionally I do get some design work, but for the most part, yeah, like occasionally my job does cross over. When it came to Cairn, there was some conversation between me and Jert about like stretch goals and funding tiers and everything. And as the person who was designing the Kickstarter page, I had some input in, hey, maybe this is how this should look. You know, this is a mock up of the box. Maybe we could do something like that. And yeah, so Jert's a fantastic person to work with because I mean, you've spoken with him. You know, he's an extremely humble and down to earth guy, and yeah, despite his success in the field, he really hasn't let it go to his head.
I mean, that's extremely true. Like the guy's name is in more TTRPG books
Oh
than
my
anyone on
god!
the entire planet. Like I don't think it's
I
even
think he's got like
close.
yeah, I think he's got like half a dozen Ennies, give or take, or has been attached to like half a dozen Ennie projects.
Yeah. I mean, the nominated for like 3 or 4 just this year alone.
Yeah.
Um, in the innies. But
I don't have a
uh,
single one. My shelf is empty.
hey, for now, for now.
I
Um,
mean, we didn't. We if I had if either me or Richard had thought to nominate Moonlight as that came out last year, if we had thought to nominate it this year, maybe it would have gotten something. But who knows?
how far from like release can things be nominated, or is it just like forever?
I think it's just anything. So the 2024 NEs, if I recall, are for books that were published in 2023. So I don't think maybe we could sneak in with the Moonlight hardcover, but I'm not entirely certain.
Listen, that's exactly where I was going with it. I was like, hey, we just got a hardcover. We just got a hardcover. And it's a beautiful
We
book.
bought Bracknell Horror is coming out soon. Or Dim All the Lights is coming out soon, and that is going to be some of my best work if I do say so myself.
We will have to get it, find it, see it, and check that out as well. Um, but gosh, I had a question more about Space Penguin, and I totally lost on what it is. So, for the foreseeable future with Space Penguin, the goal is exactly what you just said. Is like as a company expands and grows, you're going to continue to do like basically all of the, I don't even know what to call it. Like Keto's back end. It's not front end, is it? Like all of the visual aspects, all the aesthetic aspects, every that, and then occasionally when projects come across that need work, like that's the future of you and Space Penguin, right? Is to just be growing with the company and continuing to expand and work within that part.
Yeah, that's the plan. We've got a few other crowdfunding endeavors lined up. I'm working on one right now that we're just about to announce for backer kit. And yeah, I don't know. Jert is really determined to try to keep things small scale and really focused on the game. Like if you look at our catalog, it's almost entirely adventures because not a lot of people publish adventures, and people have said this before. More games need adventures for them. So we're very much trying to stick to the third party creator space. We've got a few systems that are big sellers, like the Forbidden Psalms line is well, the print version is a Space Penguin exclusive, and that we release a new monthly edition of that every single month. but for the most part, yeah, we're just gracious.
Not all of it, but it's the majority
It's
of
really
my
good.
Forbidden Psalm collection. For those in podcast land, I just picked up one of the Doom piles on my floor that just happens to be entirely Forbidden Psalm.
What looks to be like 17, 18 books.
Oh, it's everything that's ever been put out in hardcover and softcover.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so yeah, we've got Forbidden Psalm. We're going to be supporting that until its creator stops writing books, which does not seem to be anytime soon.
Not capable.
And
Yeah.
and aside from that, like I mean, I've seen our release schedule for the next like 2 years because again, Jert is fantastic at all the back end stuff. He's really got a full plan for this, and yeah, we got some really awesome stuff coming out. And none of it is the Bloodborne official tabletop role playing game, but people don't play those games anyways.
Wait till they do a real PC port, and then maybe people will be clamoring for it. But just like all of them, you'll just have to convert it to 5e right before you release it. But but yeah, for those that aren't aware, maybe in those in podcast land, we do have a monthly episode with Jert. I think our episode this month got a little pushback. One of us was not feeling super well. I don't know when we're going to reschedule that, but I literally have the releases right next to me. I don't want to show them off before you have Jert on to do it, but definitely huge fans of Space Penguin here on the show. One reason that I wanted to reach out and talk to you, first of all, of being a fan, second of all, knowing that you were doing all the work with Space Penguin, even sending me like graphics and stuff at times. Jert's like, here, got this thing from DAI, throw it up. I'm like, all right, I got this. So we had to talk eventually. And I think not the last thing, I mean, we're getting towards the end of our time, but one of the reasons, the thing that kind of pushed me over to be like, I have to send an email to this person was the game that you were talking about. Some beautiful graphics went up on the interwebs. Did you want to talk at all about the game that you're working on?
Yeah, Half-Light.
Or not?
Half-Light.
Or not? All right.
Yeah. So this is a game that I've been working on for a few years now. And outside of a single adventure in the Demon Collective and a very angsty 4-page game I designed for itch.io, some game jam years ago, this will be the very first writing credit I've got. And so the game is called Half-Light, Gothic horror role-playing. It's a horror dungeon crawl game that is designed around like Libreté's dice mechanic system. It uses what I would consider like a fairly novel stress and sanity mechanic. Unlike most sanity mechanics, which I think are actually a little ableist sometimes, this is not a game where you see a big scary monster and your character goes insane and you lose control of them entirely. Instead, it's more like a overwhelming amount of stress. We call it frenzy. It's the momentary loss of composure, which can have fairly damaging effects on your survivability and the morale of your party and everything. And it's actually my only other podcast appearance back in like 2022. I talked about the game because I was writing it still then. It's ever since I saw Libreté, I was like, okay, this is the perfect system to adapt for like a Darkest Dungeon inspired dungeon crawler. And I've just been tinkering away with it, and I've set a goal for myself to have it published this year.
So I know we talked about this before. Liberté is incredible. It's a game that is extraordinarily underrated. And have there ever been other hacks for it?
To my knowledge, there have been no third-party hacks of Liberté. Its creator Vivi has produced a mecha supplement called Bile and Steel, but to my knowledge, it has never been translated into English. It is a French exclusive.
Sounds like we got to get GMDK up and running again, so we can get another.
That was the plan, and then I shuttered the company. So blame me for that. You can blame me entirely for there being no sad children in mech game.
For now. I mean, it's if only you knew a publisher. um, that
Yeah,
made
good
games,
point.
you know.
Good point.
Um, because I think there's a lot of people out there that not only would they like sad children, I guess is a weird way to say it,
I
but
mean,
like mechs
it's Neon
too.
Genesis
I was gonna
Evangelion,
say like
basically.
sad children in mech is literally just Neon Genesis. Like, why are
Yeah.
we not playing this game? Um, so I mean, after Half Life, I think we have the plan for the future. I wanted
Yeah.
to throw the one of the graphics up, but when I save it from your Twitter, it's in a JFIF file, um,
That is
which
strange. I don't know what that is. I can send it if I mean,
oh no, I
I
can
don't know
just
how I
copy
can give it
paste.
to you, but
But
I have all of them.
oh no, you're good. It's gorgeous. I love the graphics that you've been putting out for it. They're absolutely insane. And let me just hit save on this real quick, and that'll be a PNG. And let me throw it up again for those in podcast land. Hey, come watch the show sometime. Um, it the vibes, the layout, everything. So, and again, I don't know when. I'm sure I talked about it on the show already. We were emailing back and forth, and I was like, "Hey, I would love to talk about Half-Life." You're like, "Hey, it's kind of dark. It's based on Liberté," and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, never mind. That's really, really dark." I don't
No,
know if we're gonna play that on
would
stream.
yeah, you had asked if I wanted to run the game,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, the game traffics in heavy themes. The
Mhm.
system is entirely about giving, taking, and managing trauma, and I've got a panoply of content warnings and safety tools in the book. And one of the big ones is I straight up say, I don't believe this is a good convention game. You should not play this game with people that you do not know personally and people that you do not trust. You know, like one of the key mechanics of the game that I revealed on Twitter a while ago is called nightmares. And the idea is that if you make camp without the proper precautions, you know, it's entirely possible that one of your characters may find themselves in a nightmare. And all the characters are pulled into it, but it is a manifestation of that one particular character's trauma. And in the GM's guide that I'm writing, I give a few examples of this, and they can be difficult topics. You know, the scholar who is a disgraced academic has one where they are basically being run out of their institution. You know, desperately trying to explain themselves and to an unfeeling crowd. The leader is reliving their worst mistake that got all of the people under their command killed, and it is my ideal that this can actually lead to some very interesting conversations with the players and how they're reacting to how their characters may feel. But yeah, I would never want a player to suffer for the actions of a player character
Yeah. Well,
or the
yeah.
actions of a GM.
I mean, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. So I feel like the best games that, or not the best to me, the games that I really want to play are definitely ones that probably won't make it on the show. And this is exactly those kind of things. Like I love,
Yeah.
like Kingdoms from Sophia Tini, for example, is a game that, and we say almost the exact same thing when we recommend it to people. It's just like, you should play this with friends that like are okay with you stabbing in the back like super hard and like, you know, dealing with these like adult themes and stuff like that. And like Half-Life sounds like exactly that kind of game. And Liberté is definitely one of those games where I'm like,
Yeah.
first, so let's just talk about also this, the giant stop sign in the front where you're like, hey, here's safety tools. But then like underneath, it's like, no, 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 no. It's like actually read the safety tools. I'm explaining why this is important and how this is heavy. So, I mean, and this is just about like water and
that was my
kids,
own
not
design.
like, yeah. So this
Yeah, that was
is
my own design, like the stop sign and everything. That was not in the original manuscript. I was like, this is reading the book. This is important.
yeah. Are we going to see a similar stop sign motif at the beginning of Half-Life?
I don't think
Callback.
so. The visual design of Half-Life is actually heavily inspired by um, William Morris, the works of printmaker, textile maker, writer, poet artist, designer, publisher William Morris, who I'm a huge fan of. And so in fact, the body text I'm using is called Golden Type, which is one of the fonts that he designed. And so I'm really trying to go back to basics with this one. It's going to be a very standard sort of like 18th century manuscript style book that I think is going to end up looking really, really good. But it also is, I'm not going to do anything really wild with the design. I feel I'm hoping that the words and the art will stand on their own merits without needing a very in-your-face design.
That's a nice looking, it's a nice looking font there. I'm excited for that. I will say that's one thing about your design that I really, really enjoy, and like Gangs of Titan City again is one that I show people all the time, where with like, I'm trying to even think of like specific pages where I know in character creation there's this giant black bar across the top that, and with the book is like white. It's black and white, but it says in white in that bar, it's like, hey, basically do it the way we say first, but then after you get that down, like come up with your own and do your own thing. And the thing I really like about even the way that that's laid out is like, it's impossible to miss, you know? Yeah. And there's a lot of ways that you do that in an extremely clean way, or even where you do like, it'll be a full page spread, but then like one of the pages is like a third or a half. So it's like 3/4 white across the whole spread and then black on the side with like important information there and stuff like too. There's really like simple, elegant ways where you make sure that important information is communicated in a way that's like interesting. It fits in with the themes. And, you know, we've come across like a number of books where like even through reading it, even when I read it, when Hunter reads it, when we read it together, we'll miss something. And maybe we're just dumb as shit, but like if something's super important, you know, bolded words, keywords, or even just subtle, like, hey, put it in a slightly gray box or a giant black bar across the bottom. Whenever I've read books where you've done the layout in 4, I don't really, now that I know to look for it, I notice that you don't really miss those things. Like important information is displayed in a way that makes it easy to not miss and to understand. So I really appreciate that way about the way that you do your layout.
Yeah. Something that has always stuck with me, and I can't quite recall where I first read it, but back when I was teaching myself graphic design, I told you I read a bunch of books, and I in particular, I read a bunch of manifestos, like a designer trying to put down in 1 or 2 pages what they believe the purpose of design is. And somewhere in one of those, I read something that's always stuck with me, which is that when the words are good, the design doesn't have to be. Or I'm sorry, when the words are good, the design should be invisible, or something to that effect. And it's like, yeah, I believe that in particular, when designing a book, my job is to get out of the way. I present the information, but I don't occlude it, and I don't try to cover it up, and I don't try to grandstand, taking attention away from it, you know? And in particular with a book like Gangs of Titan City, going back to the fact that I read all this stuff and I take notes as to what I feel is important, it's very like necessary in my mind for the person designing a book to know what should be highlighted and what shouldn't be. And sometimes the writer will make like little comments in the doc saying, oh, this should be a sidebar, or oh, this should be bolded. But for the most part, yeah, it's just knowing or making a judgment call as to what I think is most important and what I think the person reading the book needs the most. That's what I highlight.
Yeah. You know, it is interesting, especially again when you say that and then you think about some of the stuff that you've done, and it is very true. Like there's, you know, they're not like art like art punk books like Merc Borg or anything like that where it's like that, but so us on the show, you know, we do review games, we're supposed to, and we do give metrics at the end. We give numbers to our opinions, just to at least be able to quantify it in some way. And one of the things that we ended up kind of evolving, the thing I think we evolved the most in the way that we did that metric is the art and layout specifically, where we ended up splitting it into like art and layout is a number and usability is a whole nother number. But layout comes into both of those. So layout actually ends up being in two metrics, not just one, because of kind of just how important it is. So you can see a layout where there's in art and layout, our first metric. It's just like visually, how does it look? Is it pretty? Does it look
Yeah.
nice? But and then usability also goes directly to layout too for things that we talked about before is like hyperlinks and are things in the right order and is it it might be pretty but is it fucking readable, like all of the other aspects for kind of the behind the scenes quote unquote of layout and exactly what you're talking about where aesthetically it looks really nice but like from the usability standpoint it should all just be there. Like you shouldn't need to hunt and dig and look for things when you have a really nice layout. Again, like you have in Gangs of Titan City, you don't need to hunt for things. You don't need to look for things. Things are presented in such a way where you can just continue with the flow of information. And not only does it look nice, but it's fed to you in a way where it's easy to digest. So,
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. You know, the the most useful book, in my opinion, is the one that is easiest to read. If it's the designer or the writer's intent that the book be difficult to read or challenging in some regard, that's fine, and the design should reflect that. With Liberté, there were some pages where I tried to echo the words that were on it with the design, particularly with the monsters. There's a one monster that is sort of a the how do I put this? It's the personification of intrusive thoughts and loneliness. And for that page, I tried to bring the margins in as tight as I could. The entire page is black. Even some of the space between lines is covered because like I just wanted you to focus entirely on the words and feel like even the page itself is pressing in on you.
that's what's up. That's again, like this is why we hire good layout designers to do the layout for it. Um, one
Right.
note I wrote here, so I'm gonna bounce back three tangents. When you were talking about, you said it was William Morris who you were kind of using as a reference for Half Life.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So one thing you
Key
said about
figure of the
like,
arts and crafts moment.
well, so even within like the design that you were talking about, because clearly you said that, you're using him as a like holding him up as part of it. The design that I have up on the screen here, Half Life, the Gothic role playing game, even the art on that looks kind of like woodcut or lino cut. Is that so? You're going like deep with all the aesthetics, kind of heading that direction, huh?
No, all of those are actually woodcuts. I have a gigantic folder of probably 50 or 60 woodcuts I've pulled from various, like not only Wikimedia Commons, but I've also pulled up like individual pieces from museums. I've contacted several museums and tried to get scans of them. So yeah, I've got all of this stuff is public domain.
So the graphic that's on the screen right now that I'm looking at right now that I keep pointing in the wrong direction to. So all of those are actually woodcut like art that has been adapted to use for Half Life.
I cannot see what is on your screen, but I'm assuming
I think
yes.
it's your most recent Twitter. It's the thing that's at the top of your Twitter page with the three or like five-ish
Ah,
figures at the bottom.
yes, yes. That is oh, who is that? Let me see. The a particular German artist. I could probably find out who it was if I can recall correctly. Um uh, yes, a German expressionist Kirtha Kollwitz uh is who I believe is the artist for that. Yeah, and so it's a it looks significantly worse the way I found it, as it is about 150 years old. But yeah, a little bit of a Photoshop cleaning up and then deliberately dirtying again gets you the look I'm going for. Uh, a lot of the work that I've pulled, there is one particular Norwegian artist who basically made woodcuts about the ongoing plague in his country. So that's where you get those really cool images of like the skeleton man manning the guillotine and everything. I'm like, oh my god, this is so dope. And yeah, one of the cool things about designing your own game and doing everything from the writing to the art to the layout is you can let each piece sort of influence the others. Like when I was writing the book, I had a certain aesthetic in mind. And then when I found those woodcuts, I'm like, okay, I can totally pivot to this. And so I started referencing and reinforcing those ideas in the writing and in the layout now that I knew what sort of art I was going for.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the second that I saw the first graphic of you on Twitter posting Half-Light, and then I read like one line about it, I'm like, okay, you got me. Like, I am, if nothing, an edgelord piece of shit. And as soon as there's like dark themes and stuff you should only play with friends and stuff, I'm like, you won me over. And if we're talking about woodcuts of skeletons and guillotines, you're at worst writing directly to an audience of one. So I'm very, very excited for Half-Light. Can't wait to see it. It exists. It is coming out.
It is coming out. I have a hard limit of 2024. I've already created the Kickstarter page. I'm just waiting for it to waiting to feel like I've got it ready enough that I can hit go. You know, so October, maybe late October, maybe November.
It's right around the corner. Halloween's a great day. You know, it
Yeah,
exists. It's out there.
yeah.
Now, is this something just through you? Are you working with Jert for like distro and stuff like that? Like how are
I will
using the
be
home field
working with
advantage
Jert.
or
I will be
okay,
working with Jert through distro. I will be working with a print shop out of Philadelphia, assuming we fund and everything. A pretty awesome local indie print shop. I say local, but I haven't been in Philadelphia in years. But
same.
really awesome indie print shop called Fireball that I will hopefully be printing the books through. And yeah, I'm really hoping that this product, like, I'm putting a lot of effort into it, and I really want it to hold up as a truly, truly, truly beautiful book. You know, I want the same way I feel like Liberté is a truly beautiful book inside and out. I want this to be my magnum opus.
I'm very excited for it. I think we had previously talked about the potential of it coming out in October, and either. I mean, you're always welcome back anytime you want to come here on the show and talk. Again, we're not really going to run the game, but for those listening or watching, this will not be the last time you hear about Half-Light. I'll probably not shut the fuck up for the whole time it's crowdfunding, so that it exists, so that I can own it. So trust me when I say that you will all hear about this again. Um, Di, it has been fantastic to finally get a chance to talk to you. I have been looking at your work for a long time, and this is the thing that finally made me go, fuck. Like I said, I got to email this person, and I would talk to Jared about you all the time. So it was wonderful to talk to you. For people that are going to be looking for you to do layout, PDF remediation, or B, looking for information on Half-Light as it starts to drop and whatnot, where can people find you and find your stuff?
Well, I mean, first of all, the pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm on Twitter way more often than I should at DAI Sugars. That's DAISHUGARS. My website is the same, daisugars.com. I have a Blue Sky, same name. I don't use that one as much, but might switch to that. Half-Light can be found at any of those. And I also have a dedicated site for it called playhalflight.com, all one word. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, Discord, DAI Sugars. It's a pretty unique name, so I really had no issue getting handles for it.
Good. All right. Well, just bookmark that Half-Life page. This is exactly what I should have just brought up originally. And there is the
That page
skeleton
is
at the
pretty dope, I gotta
guillotine.
say.
Oh, it is. Well, now I have to show it. Now I have to show it to stream. Let me rearrange real quick. Some of the stuff behind here. Look at that. Look at that skelly boy right there, with all of that's going on. Here's my capture. Um, it's a absolutely stunning page, and let me get it to where it's actually in the thing here. My goodness, that skeleton on the side again. If there was one thing that was going to make me back this project, it's skeletons and guillotines and heads. There's the whole how do I play section already listed here. I mean, features and highlights of the game. Like, there's already so much information here about how the game works. Like, what is Half-Light? Who is the adversary? My goodness. So again, I'm not going to shut up about this. I'm very excited for this project. Very excited that we got a chance to talk. And I'm sure I will continue to talk to Jert about all the wonderful things that you're doing there as well. Again, can't thank you enough for being here. And I will make sure that all of the links for those, as we say every time, are in the descriptions of wherever you're listening below. So you can click on that. And our links are the same as they've been for 200 episodes. So that is us for today. And we're out.